Hey, everybody, welcome to the latest edition of the Diamond Discussion. I am your host, Demetrius Woods, and today we are jumping into the much anticipated NCAA softball tournament. The best 64 teams remaining in the country. Regionals start this weekend. I'm going to jump into each of those 16 regionals, and I'll give you my picks at the very end of this thing. So, without further ado, let's get it started. All right, guys, welcome to the show. I'm excited. I hope you are too. We have the top 64 teams remaining in the country. NCAA softball, man, it could not get wilder right now. I'm excited for where we are. I'm going to kick this thing off with the number one seeded Texas Longhorns and their regional. They're going to face off against Siena, and then we've got St. Francis of Pennsylvania against Northwestern. All of that will happen at the University of Texas this weekend. And Texas right now, they look like the best team in the country, even though they lost their conference championship to Oklahoma, which that's their last one, obviously, because Texas and Oklahoma will be moving out to the SEC starting July 1st when the conference realignments take place. But man, Texas looks good, and I'm excited to see the fight that they put up through the regionals and supers, and I fully anticipate them getting to the Women's College World Series. But I will get into my picks later. That was just a little tidbit. Here's the thing about Northwestern, though. Okay, don't overlook them because they beat a hot LSU team early in the season. LSU was the last remaining undefeated team, if you guys remember that. I definitely do. They were 24-0. So, excuse me, they lost. They lost to a hot LSU team, and but they didn't lose by much. They lost in extra innings, and then they lost 1-0 to a solid UCLA team at the time. And oh, by the way, they swept Michigan. Okay, and Michigan ended up being your Big Ten champion. All right, so Northwestern is not one to slouch on at all. I think they're gonna push Texas a little bit with their pitching staff. Northwestern's got some good bats in the lineup, and it's gonna be a problem. So number one seeded Texas, watch out because Northwestern is coming. Let's talk about number two. Number two seeded Oklahoma Sooners, baby. Boomer Sooner. They're gonna take on Cleveland State out there in Oklahoma, and then Boston University and Oregon will both be out there as well. Now, I'm interested to see how that initial first round matchup is going to go with Boston and Oregon because they've both had really great seasons. Okay, Boston, I think they may have lost 4 or 5 games all year. Okay, so that they don't know what it's like to lose much. Okay, so I think Oregon is going to have a problem there, but okay, Big Bad Oklahoma, they've got the pedigree, and I almost get this vibe. Right, we've talked about parity so much this season till it's not even funny, right? Because Oklahoma, of course, they've three-peated up to this point. They've got an opportunity to four-peat, and I almost get this vibe, man, that Oklahoma's going to figure out how to be playing some softball on June 5th, which would be game number one of the final championship series. That's the vibe I have right now. Until somebody knocks them off, I haven't lost the faith in them necessarily. I feel like they're as gettable as they've been in the last decade. But again, when you got that championship pedigree, you've got Patty Gasso and that coaching staff that knows how to get things done. And those players, they still have players. They got Jada Coleman, right? They got Henson. That they've got Barnhart who came over from Oklahoma State, right? I mean, they've got some solid pieces ready to make this run. So I'm interested to see what they're going to do out of this number two spot. That's going to be the big picture. Can they get through the supers and to the Women's College World Series and get the matchup that they need to have to be able to win some early games early on in that series? So that's a number two. Number three, we got the University of Tennessee out of Knoxville. They're hosting their 19th. Gosh, that's unbelievable. What a run. 19th straight regional in Knoxville. So shout out to Tennessee. They're going to have Dayton. They're going to have Miami of Ohio and Virginia in the Knoxville regional. And I'll tell you right now, man, Tennessee, to me, they're the best team in the Southeastern Conference. Despite losing their conference, they didn't win the conference championship this year. And I think I can't remember how long it's been since a Southeastern Conference team has gone back to back. I think Florida did it. Florida did it. I think they went back to back in 17-18 or 18-19, something like that. So it's been a little bit since a team has been able to do that. But Tennessee's the best team in the conference right now, and that daggum 1-2 punch of Carlin Pickens and Peyton Gottschall, they deserve, to me, they deserve co-pitcher of the year in the SEC because their ERAs both below 1.5, I think. And it's Kiki Malloy. I know she's a graduate senior, and I know she was a little bit more vulnerable this year than she was last year in terms of just her opening up to her teammates. I think that was a great thing for her as well. And she had a down year slightly. That's being a little probably exaggerated even, honestly. But, for to what she's performed, the level that she's performed at in recent years, the last 2 seasons, she's been otherworldly. And so she was a little bit more human this year. But that Tennessee team is going to be a problem. It's going to be a force to be reckoned with, and I'm excited to see where they land in this tournament. But here's the thing: they've got a Virginia team now. They're going to face Dayton, okay, and Dayton. Shout out to Dayton, okay. Getting into the NCAA tournament for the first time is a big deal. So shout out to them, and they're going to be faced with a tall task with Tennessee in the first round. But I want to talk about those other two teams in Miami of Ohio and Virginia. Starting with Virginia, okay, they won 2 out of 3 games in Durham versus Duke. Okay, and check this out. The game that they lost was a 12 inning game by 1 run. They lost 1-0. So Duke shut them out in 12 innings. They only allowed 1 run in the 12th, right? Duke walked it off against them. So Virginia is a scary team to me because not only did they do that, but I felt like even though they didn't win all their series there in the ACC, they pushed a lot of teams to the brink inside their conference. And so what I'm saying right now is that although Tennessee has what it needs on the pitching side of things right here, but I think they need to score some runs to be able to take care of Virginia. Now, here's the thing. That's if Virginia gets past Miami of Ohio. All right. Because Miami of Ohio right now, they are 3 home runs shy. Okay. 3 home runs shy of being the all time single season leading team in homers, which is insane. I think they need 3 home runs. I think they got 162 is what they need. And they're being led by Carly Spade. If you don't know that name, look her up, Google her, YouTube Carly Spade, because she's another one who's a force to be reckoned with the bat at the plate. She's only 2 home runs shy of breaking the record of single season home runs by an individual, right? Because Jocelyn Allo did it twice. I think she's like third or fourth. Jocelyn Allo's third and fourth on that list. Then there's Carly Spade. I can't remember who's number one all time right now, but Carly Spade needs 2 more to get to 38 to break that record. And if you remember, Miami of Ohio as a team at the very beginning of the season, it required a walk-off home run from Oklahoma to knock them off. Okay, out in Oklahoma, by the way. All right, so Miami of Ohio has it. And all I'm going to say about that is Oklahoma better bring the bats. If they've got to face Miami of Ohio, they better bring their bats with them, okay? Because Miami of Ohio can hit, and they can hit the long ball, and they can do it well. And so I'm excited to see where that goes because if they get that matchup, I think the committee knew what they were doing right there. Excuse me, I'm not talking about Oklahoma. I mean Tennessee right there. Tennessee better bring the bats because of what happened out in Oklahoma with Miami of Ohio. My bad. So again, that's going to be an interesting one there. Miami of Ohio, that they won the MAC championship as well, so they're on a bit of a hot streak themselves. And who knows, man? It's tournament time. Anything can happen. So number 4, before we take a quick break here, is Big Bad University of Florida Gators. And I'm just going to tell you right now, man, their youthfulness has not been a detriment. And that's impressive to me, especially in the Southeastern Conference. When you have a lot, this year specifically, you've got a lot of veteran teams who have, they have the pedigree, they have the experience. And Florida just simply does not have as much of that as some of the top SEC teams out there. But if you look at the regional that they got here, they got 2 other Florida teams, which was nice for them, I guess. But they've got Florida Gulf Coast, they got Florida Atlantic, and then they've got South Alabama out of the Sun Belt Conference. And I don't know that either of those 3 teams are going to be able to hang with Florida right now. The only way I feel like they would be able to be gotten, so to speak. And again, in the regionals here, you've got 4 teams playing a double elimination tournament. So somebody's got to beat Florida twice. And I just don't see that happening right now. Keegan Rothrock leading that pitching staff. She has been absolutely dominant there. And number 11, I can't remember her name. Big bad number 11, dude. Do not pitch her inside. How about that? All pitching staffs, if you don't have a scouting report, there it is for you. Don't throw her inside because she can absolutely rake. Honestly, I think she can hit the all field with power, but definitely to left field. That's for sure. So Florida is going to be a force. I think the matchup that they have is going to be favorable for them. And honestly, the way that they looked in the SEC tournament was impressive. They took down Mizzou, who I felt like, and we're going to talk about them again in a second here, but Mizzou is strong, and they put up a great resume. Texas A&M, they're solid. So again, and the way that they beat Georgia, Florida beat Georgia in that SEC tournament, and they took Georgia's best punch mid game and mid to late game there, and they said no, we're slamming the door on that, and they ended up winning that game by 5 runs, but it was a 2-2 ball game in the fifth. So what I'm going to say about Florida is high praise to them, mad respect to what they're doing, and the coach Tim down there in Gainesville, Florida. So shout out to that program and what they got going on. Real quick before we take a break, I want to give another quick shout out to the first timers, okay? Because this is an amazing accomplishment to be in this field of 64, okay? So you've got Dayton, which is Dayton, Ohio. You've got Siena, and then you've got Southeastern Louisiana. So those are the 3 teams who before this season had never made the NCAA tournament. So shout out to them. I hope they can make a run, a little Cinderella story, if you will. But if not, man, kudos to them for just getting here, and hopefully they can compete at a high level and put up a big fight. So with that being said, that is the 1 through 4 regionals. We're going to go through 5 through 8 right after this break, and I'm going to grab a drink of water, and I'll be right back to you guys. All right, guys, welcome back to the show. We're going to give you 5 through 8, all right, right now, and that's going to start off with the number 5 seed in the country, Oklahoma State. They're scary, man. They are scary. Let me tell you who else is in that regional, though. They're going to host Northern Colorado, and then they're going to also have Michigan and Kentucky. So that's kind of an intriguing regional, and here's why. Because Oklahoma State, they're the only team in the country to beat number 1 and number 2 in the entire series, right? They took the series from Texas, and they took the series from Oklahoma. Now, another thing about Oklahoma State is their only loss this year, check this out, their only loss at home this year was to Texas in that series. All right? So they don't lose at home, really. And I think that was a 1-run loss against Texas. So I think that Michigan, Kentucky, Northern Colorado, whoever they face in that regional right there is going to have a tall task, because if they're in Stillwater, Oklahoma, then it's going to be tough. So shout out to them for taking down Texas and Oklahoma in that series. But here's the thing. Michigan, again, like I said, they're the Big Ten champ. And anytime anybody can pull off a conference championship like that, it's going to be tough. They're going to be a force to be reckoned with. I felt like Indiana was hot, and so for the Indiana to make a championship run and for Michigan to knock them off on the run that Indiana was on is saying a lot about the Michigan program and where they are today. So shout out to them. Kentucky, I got a lot of bit of SEC bias. I'm not apologetic about that at all. I felt like the Kentucky conference schedule was a solid one, and I don't really know what their RPI was to close out the year, but either way, they're going to be a problem, no doubt. And I honestly think that I don't know what's going to happen between them and Michigan. I think that first round matchup is a very good one for both teams. I think styles make fights all the time in every sport, and that's one of those styles make fights type situation. And I could see it, go into extra innings. You know what I mean? It could be a shootout kind of thing. So that's going to be an interesting regional, and we'll see where that one goes. I'm excited. I'm a little giddy thinking about that one because Oklahoma State, man, they're looking good, and I truly I thought they were going to fall off a little bit after after losing the pitching staff, after losing Barno to Oklahoma, and just a couple of those seniors leaving as well. Like I wasn't sure what they were going to look like, but they definitely impressed me remaining in the top five in the country and putting themselves in a good position to make a run to the Women's College World Series. All right, number 6 team in the country, UCLA. Y'all, they started out. I think they were outranked outside the top 10. They'd gotten as deep as 13 or 14 at one point in the rankings, and then they started to push. They got hot right at the right time. They turned the Jets on, no doubt, and so much so that their last 22 games they've only got 2 losses. All right, yeah, I said that correctly. 2 losses in the last 22 games, right? And that includes a win in the final Pac-12 championship. And so here's the thing, they're right where they need to be. They're right where they want to be at this time of year after the slow start that they got off to, as I mentioned earlier. So I'm interested to see what they're going to do in this regional and then potentially in the supers from there. But they're going to host Grand Canyon, and then San Diego State and Virginia Tech. And so I don't know a bunch about Grand Canyon. I can't tell you a bunch about them, but I do know that Virginia Tech, unfortunately, they're not going to be at home. Obviously, they're going to be out in California at UCLA. However, it is noteworthy that Virginia Tech went undefeated at home this year, up in Blacksburg, Virginia. So I think that says a lot about their program and the way that they take care of home field, right? So that's a big deal. But again, they're on the road, and I think they had a win. They had a win in Tuscaloosa against Alabama, but other than that, they haven't really impressed me a bunch on the road. So hopefully they can go into UCLA, take care of business against, their first round opponent and go from there, right? So we'll see what they do in their first round opponent against San Diego State. And, I don't know much about San Diego State either, but I think that Virginia Tech should be able to take care of business there. San Diego State, prove me wrong. We'll see. All right. Number 7, Mizzou. Man, they've just like Florida, they've made a believer out of me. I'll tell you that, because Mizzou, they beat my Tigers, mate. They beat my Tigers 3 out of 4 times this year, and they beat them twice in Columbia. LSU went to Columbia, Missouri to face them there. They beat 2 out of 3 there, and then they beat us to get to the conference championship this year. So Mizzou's solid, and it's interesting because they have the least amount of home runs in the Southeastern Conference. Okay, and I think that's important to note because to me, they just get stuff done. They don't really care how they got to get it done. Like, they can play small ball, they can do this, they can do that, they can beat you in multiple ways, and that, to me, that's the makings of a team that you don't really want to face in the postseason, because they can almost be a chameleon to whatever corner you're trying to back them into. They can fight out of it, right? So Mizzou's going to be a hard one to beat, man. But here's the thing. Look at who they have in their regional. I think this is, again, noteworthy. They've got Omaha, Indiana, and Washington. Now, no slight to Omaha. I just don't think that they have enough to beat Mizzou. But let's talk about Indiana and Washington. Again, Indiana made a run to the Big Ten championship against Michigan, and Michigan outs them. Okay, fine. They outdueled them there, no problem. But Indiana's right there, and they're a scary team. But if you look at Washington's resume for a second, they won the series against Cal, who we're going to talk about here shortly, UCLA, and Arizona. All right, those are 3 Pac-12 teams that were nationally ranked at some point, if not still. So what I'm getting at is Washington, they lost Kelly Lynch, they lost some other seniors as well, right? Kelly Lynch now at LSU on the staff there. Thank you. But here's the thing, they lost some pieces, and they still found a way, all right, to get into the tournament. And I don't know that it's a foregone conclusion that Mizzou's gonna take over Columbia. I really don't. Washington will be a problem. and I'm here for it. So we'll see what that problem looks like and how that goes out there in Mizzou. But I think that that'll be an interesting regional right there. And then number 8 here, the number 8 seed ended up being Stanford. And so shout out to Stanford, man, for making that push that they needed to make. They've been consistent for the most part all year and done what they've needed to do to earn a top 8 position in this tournament. So shout out to Stanford doing what they did. I've got one name for you though, Kennedy. All right, she is one that to me she can single-handedly dominate an offense from the circle without a doubt. Stanford could score one run, maybe two, and I think Stanford the edge goes to them. I don't think they need a lot of runs with her in the circle. Honestly, I don't. So that's going to be intriguing to look for. But here's the thing: rather, they've also got some big road wins. I won't fail to mention that, which is impressive because if you can win on the road, that means to me that you can figure out ways to get things done at home, right? Contrary to Virginia Tech, right, who went undefeated at home, but they didn't look good on the road. So so Stanford's got the pedigree there. They can make another Women's College World Series run in back-to-back years. But boy, do they have to me a tough road in their region. They might have, I won't say the toughest regional, but they have a tough one because they've got Mississippi State, and Mississippi State is one that they've been streaky this year, but they won the series against Georgia and Arkansas. All right, which are two teams we're about to talk about here shortly, who both have a regional hosting spot. So Mississippi State is tough. They also run ruled Tennessee in game one of that series. And I think that series was in Knoxville. So, hey, listen, Mississippi State is a problem. There's a reason why they're here. And also, there's a reason why all 13 SEC teams made the NCAA tournament. All right. Say what you want about the SEC bias. Yes, it's there for me. Maybe the committee may lean that way a little bit too, but the resumes speak for themselves, man. They were beating up on each other all year long, and they also had solid non-conference victories throughout the country. So Mississippi State is going to be an issue for Stanford. Now, here's the other team in that region. I guess I didn't give you everybody, but Stanford's got St. Mary's of California, and then you're going to have Mississippi State versus Cal State Fullerton. This is interesting. Again, I felt like the committee knew what they were doing again here because they matched up Mississippi State with Cal State Fullerton again, and these two teams faced off, I think, in February, I believe, late February. They faced off early. I know it is an early season matchup. However, Cal State Fullerton only dropped that game by 2 runs to Mississippi State in the Mary Nutter Classic. So, with that being said, that will be a great first round matchup, and the winner will get to face, obviously the winner out of Stanford and who are they playing? Who did I just say? Stanford and St. Mary's. Yeah. So I think Stanford obviously should take care of St. Mary's. So Mississippi State, Cal State, Fuller, who's going to do it? Who's going to get it done from there? So that is going to be a fun regional to look for. Before we take a quick break here, I want to talk about the last 4 teams out. And the reason I want to talk about this is because I know there's always a buzz, from us fans of, man, the committee should have done this or they should have done that. Well, here's the thing. I know that the committee deliberated for 3 days, right? And it was a lot of work, and it was a lot of, just comparison of resumes and things of that nature. And obviously they feel they got it right, so I can't argue against them because I didn't do the extensive research that they did. However, right, if you look at the first 4 teams out, you had BYU, Louisville, Texas Tech, and Wichita State. Now, personally, I feel that Wichita State ended up being a huge snub. I thought they deserved to get in. But I know that the buzz around the country thus far has been specifically about BYU. And I began to look, because I only watched BYU a handful of times this year, and I began to look at their resume, and I'm like, oh, snap. Like, there's 64 teams better than them? Like, in terms of resume? So you look at BYU, okay, quality wins. Right now, I'm considering any win against an SEC school a quality win, for what it's worth. So, that's number 1. They beat Ole Miss. Quality win, number 1. Number 2, they beat Cal State Fullerton, who that's who I just got done talking about. They also beat Oklahoma State, the number 5 team in the country. Big win right there. Come back there in just a second. They beat big bad Oklahoma, right? That's a big one. Huge one. Number 2 team in the country. And they turned around in the Big 12 tournament and beat Oklahoma State again. So what I'm getting at is they had some really quality wins against some really quality opponents. Therefore, how do you leave them out, right? But the question always begs, who do you take off that list? Because of course you've got some of your at-large, people that get in. You've got some of your, you've got your automatic qualifiers, those who win their conference championships. And I heard the committee, one of the committee members talking today, or maybe even yesterday, about the fact that listen, nobody really kind of stole a spot. Nobody, the conference tournaments went as they were supposed to go. You didn't really have a team that really made a big upset in the conference tournament. So basically, what he was saying there is he feels like the best 64 teams truly got in because there was no slot that was being held up by a team that just kind of went on a Cinderella run in the conference tournament. So with that being said, who do you take out? Right? I don't know. I don't know who I would take out. I felt like, man, BYU, man, that's a tough one to to leave out. But anyway, all that to be said, let's take a quick break. We're gonna jump into 9 through 12 here next, previewing number 9 LSU Tigers, baby. We'll be right back. Okay, guys, welcome back to the show once again. So, jumping in right here with 9 through 12 regionals, we've got the Baton Rouge Regional out at LSU, number 9 seed. So, let's see what they got. They got Jackson State, which is HBCU champion, and then they got Southern Illinois and Cal, the Cal Bears. Shout out to great friend of mine, Valerie Ariota, Cal Bears legend, Hall of Famer now. All the good stuff there, good vibes. So, but here's the thing: LSU ranked number 9. I feel like they got a top 5 pitching duo with Kelly Lynch, as I mentioned before, and the stud of a sophomore in Sydney Berzon. I mean, my goodness, if you did not see the 14-inning virtuoso she put on against Alabama in the SEC tournament, then you missed a treat. Now, it was a long game. It was nearly 4 hours. However, it was a doozy. 208 pitches in that game. And honestly, that game was not the only masterpiece that she put together this season. So, with that being said, led by Sydney Berzon and Kelly Lynch, I think the LSU Tigers have a great shot. Their offense has potential to explode. It hasn't done it much this year yet, the way I would have liked to see it as a fan. However, it's right there. And because our pitching staff has the ability to keep a lot of offenses at bay, our offense, if it gives us 3-4 runs, even, we got a shot. Okay, so who else is in that regional? As I mentioned, you got Jackson State. Okay, Southern Illinois. Let's talk about Cal though. The Cal Bears, they could be a problem for LSU because they took down Georgia. They also took down Washington this year, all right, which are 2 very, very tough opponents. And I don't know if it was top 15, but I know they batted over 300 this year offensively. I watched a couple of their games, and they can hit the ball. So they can hit the ball. They find holes, and they've come in the clutch in some cases as well. So I think they're going to be a problem for LSU. I don't know that Jackson State and Southern Illinois are going to be that much of an issue for either LSU or Cal. I think it's going to come down to those 2 teams, and we'll see where it goes from there. So exciting times out in Baton Rouge. I want to sneak out there and go watch, but anyway, I won't. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do that. Anyway, so here we go. Number 10, we have the Durham Regional at Duke. Okay, the Durham Regional is at Duke, and they're going to be hosting Morgan State, and then they'll also have the Utah Utes and the South Carolina Gamecocks. Here's the thing. Let me start off with Duke for a second. I feel like they're ranked way too low, and I almost think that if I'm in their shoes and they get amped up about disrespect, then I'm putting this on the bulletin board that you were ranked number 10 after holding a 5 to 7 seed roughly for the majority of the year. At one point, they were ranked like number 2, 3 seed. Okay, so they won the ACC tournament, and then they won the regular season outright. So I think a 10. I almost felt like they deserved a top 8 seed. But again, who you gonna boot out of that, right? I don't know. I don't know who you boot out of that. But either way, Duke, I felt like they were ranked too low. Their pitching staff ended up with a top 3 ERA as well. So the point there is that they can hold teams to minimal runs, one maybe two. Sometimes they can shut you out. So I don't know. I don't know who's gonna test them in that regional. I'm going South Carolina at best, and South Carolina is another one of those streaky SEC teams that could do some damage, but maybe they won't. You never know right now with them. And so, I think that Duke is going to have way too much of a chip on their shoulders. They play well at home. They just hosted the ACC tournament at their house, so they're not going to leave anywhere. They're going to be ready to go. And I think Duke is going to make some noise in this tournament. So that's your number 10 seed. Your number 11 seed are the Georgia Bulldogs of Athens. All right, they did a lot of their damage earlier this year. Okay, and what I'm saying about that is, like, for example, you had LSU who won 24 straight games, and then they almost kind of became a 500 team after that initial run. Georgia did a similar thing. They didn't win 24 in a row, but they did a lot early, and then they struggled late. So I'm interested to see how if they can get back on track. They had a little spark of excellence against Florida during that pretty much the first 5 innings of that game in the SEC tournament. They can definitely hit the long ball with the best of them. They have a solid pitching staff that can give you, the support that you need if your offense is struggling. But they were ranked ultimately behind 4 other SEC teams to go into this tournament. You got Florida, right? We got Tennessee, you got Florida, Mizzou, and LSU. So they're saying that they're the top, they're a top 5 SEC program, and I feel like that's a fair analysis of them. That's exactly where they need to be right now. But honestly, I feel like their offense can be better than at least 3 of those other teams right now. So I think they can outduel LSU, they can outduel Mizzou, and I also think that they can outduel Tennessee. Believe it or not, Florida, I don't know, but for sure those other 3 teams on the offensive side of the ball, they can go toe to toe with them. And if you look at the whole scope of the SEC, you've got 8 teams hosting a regional, which is wild, right? And of course, I mentioned earlier, you got all 13 that's in the tournament anyway. So Georgia's right there, but here's the thing, man. Here's the thing, and some people are gonna roll their eyes at me because I'm from Georgia, born and raised here. Got a lot of Georgia fans surrounding me, but Liberty is in this regional, okay? And then who else did they have? They got UNCW. Shout out to UNCW, University of North Carolina, Wilmington. They also have Charlotte, okay? Shout out to UNCW. No disrespect to them. I just don't know if they got enough to handle Georgia. Okay. But talking about Liberty and Charlotte for 2 seconds here. Liberty, I watched them up close and personal out in Baton Rouge. They took 1 of 3 in that series against LSU. And this is the last series of the year. And their pitching staff, man, they can take care of offenses if they can locate the ball, and if it gets late, I think they can do damage. And so if they score anything, I think Georgia could be in trouble. I really do. Now again, Liberty and Charlotte are going to play each other first. Charlotte's scary. They knocked off Florida State. Let me not throw shade at Florida State by laughing, but they knocked off Florida State to kick off the year. All right. And Charlotte won the AAC championship this year as well. So Charlotte's coming in hot. They feel good about where they are. So that Charlotte Liberty game, although that's not a big house, neither one of them are your big Division I household names, right, when it comes to college softball. However, go watch that Liberty Charlotte game. I hope that it's as competitive as I expect it to be, and I hope it's a really good knockdown, drag out type of a game. And then may the best man win and go on to be a challenge to Georgia over in the Athens Regional. So we're gonna see what happens over there in Athens on that front. Now, the number 12 seed is one that I feel like they they're gonna do some damage in this tournament. In my heart of hearts, I really feel good about that. That's Arkansas. Okay. Now check out who else is in this regional. They've got Southeast Missouri State. I've honestly never heard of that school. However, shout out to them for getting in. They've also got Villanova and they've got Arizona. All right. I didn't watch a lot of Villanova this year, but I did watch some of Arizona. But before I get to Arizona, to me, Arkansas truly looked like a top three SEC school late. Okay, not early, not middle, but late. And honestly, I felt like they could have won the SEC tournament this year based on the way they were coming into the tournament. All right, their pitching staff had 14 shutouts this year. All right, 14 of those shutouts this year, and honestly, had it not been for just a weird SEC tournament where you had to deal with the rain, I think Auburn hosted the SEC tournament. Shout out to Auburn's coach, man. He's retiring after this year, so he gets an opportunity to make an NCAA tournament run with his team, whether it's short lived or long lived. Shout out to those Tigers of Auburn. So kudos to them. But anyway, Auburn did host the SEC tournament this year, and it just got a lot of rain. Really, I think it got over 10 inches of rain over the course of that week, and so it forced the Arkansas Mizzou quarterfinals for 5 of those innings to be played late at night, and they had to turn around at I think it was 9 a.m. Local time and finish the last 2 innings of that game. And I felt like, man, Arkansas made a boneheaded move, right? So Mizzou had a runner on third base. Okay, now mind you, this is the restart of the game, the reboot of the game. They don't have a lot of time to begin with. And catcher throws down to second. I can't remember how many outs there were, but catcher throws down to second with a runner at third base. Fine, right? But the runner at third got such a good jump to where there was now no play at the plate to be made. And I just felt like that was a senseless run to give up. They were down by a run at the time. It was 2-1 ball game. You want to keep that thing 2-1 at all costs, knowing that you only got 6 or 7 outs to work with on the offensive side of the ball. So I just felt like that was not very bright on their part. But either way, given that blunder, Mizzou was able to take over and ultimately get themselves, then through LSU and then to face Florida in the championship, and Florida ends up winning that. But I felt like they would have beaten Mizzou in that game had it not been for some quirkiness going on. But again, no slight to Mizzou at all because they've got a team and they were ready for the challenge. So again, but let me talk real quick about Arizona. I'm intrigued to see what they've got going on because I didn't get a chance to watch a whole bunch of them during the season. However, I did see them run rule Washington in the Pac-12 tournament. And honestly, when you see stuff like that late in the season, especially in a tournament setting, when probably both teams were putting their best on the field, in terms of pitching staff, best lineup, whatever. You're not rotating anybody in. It's not game 3 of a series. This is a tournament setting where you're putting your best foot forward, where you're probably only going to play one game a day anyway. So they run ruled Washington, and they looked really, really good. So Arizona might push Arkansas. I'm intrigued again to see how that series comes about because, again, you've got Arkansas, Arizona, and then you got Villanova and Southeast Missouri State. And I didn't get to see a bunch of Villanova this year, but we'll see. We'll see where that one goes. So we're gonna take one more break here, and then we're gonna jump into the final. Don't leave me yet. We're gonna jump into seeds number 13, 14, 15, and 16 to round this thing out. And then, actually, not one more break. We're gonna take 2 more breaks. But one break before the last one is gonna be this. And then at the very end, I'm gonna give you guys my picks to win these individual regionals. And because I'm curious to know if you're gonna agree with me, go against me, whatever. So without further ado, I'll be right back, and we'll get back to you in just a second. All right, guys. I hope you're enjoying this show as much as I am talking about it because, again, this lights me up, man. Of just seeing we've got the 64 teams booked ready to go for this weekend coming up. Hopefully, the weather is good to us all, and we're able to go. Whether you're going out to enjoy some regional softball in person or laid back on the couch watching on TV, either way, I'm ready to tune in and dive in. So, speaking of diving in, let's dive into this number 13 seed. I am so thankful that they got their own regional this year, Louisiana Lafayette of the Sun Belt Conference, because this is the team that I fear most as an LSU fan. Those in-state rivalries, man, they get emotional. It's a lot, man. And so I didn't want to see them. I really didn't. I'm not much of a Dodger kind of guy, but I didn't want to see them. So shout out to Louisiana and the committee for giving them their own regional. That's a big deal to me, and I'm grateful for that. So I'm gonna leave it at that. Much respect to them. However, look at who they have in their regional. All right, they've got Princeton, who won the Ivy League championship. Princeton outdueled Harvard this year. Harvard had to beat Princeton twice. Harvard did beat them once. A friend of mine, Jenny Roan, got a chance to meet her when she was at Covenant College, a D3 university here in Georgia. And then she went up to Minnesota, had a stint there, and now she's back at Harvard for her second stint there, and now she's the head coach. So excited for Jenny Roan and Harvard and the program that they're building there. Little plug for her. But Princeton beat them this year in the Ivy League championship. So now they have a date with Louisiana in the first round. And then on the other side of that first round in that regional, you've got Ole Miss and Baylor. Now, I think Ole Miss has the opportunity to win this regional outright without a loss. All right, that's how good I feel about Ole Miss and where they are right now and the way they're playing ball. They beat Kentucky at the very beginning of the SEC tournament, and then they had to face Mizzou, I believe it was, and they got outdueled by Mizzou, and who obviously went on to the championship series there against Florida. But Ole Miss, I think they've got what it takes. They've got the pitching, right? If she's on, they're on. And but Jalea Lassiter, man, she's a problem out there in center field, a problem in the leadoff spot. I think if she gets on base, they're almost bound to score that inning. So if she gets on base with nobody out or less than two, watch out. All right. So that's where Ole Miss is. But I think Baylor also has a shot too. So I'm not writing off Baylor. This is a tough regional, really. And this is one that I feel like almost has the potential to be a toss up. I really do. So a lot of great defense in this regional as well, coming from all of these squads. I don't know a ton about Princeton, I'll be honest with you. But the other three, Baylor, Ole Miss, and Louisiana, I know much about them, and I think they got what it takes too. So, number 14, another SEC school with a regional host, Tuscaloosa, Alabama. They've got it at their house this year. And after that, after watching them in person, Duke and battle out my LSU Tigers for 14 innings, I am 100% convinced that their pitching staff can keep them in any game. I just have some major questions about their offense. I really do. I don't know if they have enough fuel to really beat a great team because their offense just it doesn't is and again they could turn it on. All right, they're preparing for this regional just like everybody else is. So they could turn it on and then they can get hot at the right time and get after it. However, they have a Clemson team. Who else is in this regional actually? Let me tell you. So they have a Clemson team coming in. But before they play Clemson, they've got USC Upstate, and they've also got Southeastern Louisiana, which is another first timer, and they've got Clemson, right? I think Clemson should beat Southeastern Louisiana, all right, and I think Alabama should beat USC Upstate. All right, we'll say those are potential givens. Now you've got an Alabama Clemson, which is so cool to think about because of the years that we've had in the past. Alabama Clemson on the football side of things. You got on the softball side this time, and Clemson would be the presumed underdog in this case. So I think they've got nothing to lose, and I think they're coming in. They're going to play free, and honestly, they're going to take their top 25 scoring offense to Tuscaloosa and possibly do some damage. So you've got a great pitching staff on one hand in Alabama, and you've got a top 25 offense in Clemson. Who's going to blink first? So that's going to be a fun matchup. We're going to see what happens in that Tuscaloosa regional. And then the final, that was number 15. We got number 15. Alabama's number 14. So number 15 is the Florida State Tallahassee regional. Guys, I picked Florida State at the very beginning of the year to be the one to knock off Oklahoma, and I'm until they prove me wrong, I'm gonna stick with that pick. But I've lost confidence, and I truly have, because they have been the biggest disappointment to me this season. And with all due respect to Lonnie Alameda and the program that she has, those veteran players that they have on that squad, man, they are so good. Like, I really, really like Florida State. I like the team that has been assembled there. I like the presence that they have. I like their swag. I like all the things about Florida State, but they just haven't executed like I anticipated that they would this year. Now, all bets are off now. Everybody's 0-0. We'll see what happens. Okay, but they've got they've got some the situation in Tallahassee, because not only do they have Auburn, a solid SEC team in this regional. I'm lost my place here to see where we are. Where are we here? Let's see, number 15. There they are. All right, so we got Florida State hosting Chattanooga, and then we got UCF versus Auburn as well, right? And then winners face off of each other and keep going. Remember, you got a 4-team double elimination tournament going on here, with the regionals. And so Florida State, I expect them to take off, and beat the Mocs of Chattanooga. And then on the other side of that, you got Auburn and UCF. Auburn's an irritant; they really are. Okay, and they got in by the hair of their chins, right? But they got into this tournament, and I think they're ready to make some noise, or they will be. UCF is another one who's had a very sneaky good season, and both of these teams could pose a big issue for Florida State. Neither of them have to travel very far, which I think can be a factor in these situations too. So we're gonna see, man, how this pans out for Florida State. Can they get through their regional and get to supers from there for an opportunity to get to the Women's College World Series? We're gonna find out. I'm pumped up about that. And then you got number 16, the eighth SEC team to host a regional. All right, if I haven't failed to mention that yet today. But Texas A&M, man, I'm impressed with them as well. And here's the thing: they finished conference play fairly well. I felt like it took a hot Florida team to keep them from the conference finals, really, in the SEC tournament. So, but here's the thing: I've got them on upset alert, and the only reason I got them on upset alert is because they have Texas State. Now, pause there for a second. They've got Texas State, but they also have Penn State and then the University of Albany. All right, Penn State, they're going to be a problem, I think, and I'm not even certain that Texas State is going to even get past Penn State. But if they do, all right, if they do, and then assuming that Texas A&M beats University of Albany in that second round matchup there of the regional, if it's Texas A&M versus Texas State, I am excited to see that matchup round number 2, because if you remember, dating back towards the beginning of the season, Texas State beat A&M, and Texas State, a Sun Belt team, A&M obviously a Southeastern Conference team, and so when you see situations like that where some of these Sun Belt teams are taking on these SEC programs, they're not backing down. And not only they're not backing down, they're willing to punch people in the mouth and grind it out. So Texas State, Texas A&M, I'm betting on that one. If I'm a betting man, I'm betting on that to be the final of that regional, and may the best woman win from there. So again, we're gonna take a quick break though here, and I'm gonna give you guys my picks to wrap up the show of each of these regionals real quick, and we'll go from there. So hang on to your seats right there, and I'll be right back. Hey guys, welcome to the show one last time. So I am going to give you my regional final picks. All right. If you disagree, tell me. If you agree, tell me. I just want to know. I want to know where your head's at, because I'm telling you where mine is too. All right. So we're starting off. In the number one regional out in Texas. I'm gonna go Texas over Northwestern. All right. I think Texas is the number one team in the country for a reason. I think Northwestern may push them a little bit, but Texas has way too much firepower right now. They're playing. They're clicking on all cylinders for the most part, and they're going to get that done out there in Texas. The next one, is the College Station Regional hosted by Texas A&M. I've got them beaten and duking out Penn State in the finale in that one, and I don't think it's going to be close, to be honest with you. And that means also, if you remember me saying I felt like Texas State could push Texas A&M, and I think they could. However, I had to do some research on Penn State because I hadn't seen them much at all this season. I feel like Penn State's going to be able to duke out Texas State, and they're going to block us from that Texas A&M Texas State matchup that I truly want to see. So for that reason, I think Texas A&M gets it done over Penn State without much of a problem in that finale. All right, let's go to the Baton Rouge Regional at LSU. I've got them duking out Cal. That's more than just my heart talking. That's also my head. I think they've got enough. I think they've got enough offense to get it done in this regional. I also feel like the Kelly Lynch and the Sidney Berzon 1-2 punch in the circle is going to be enough to stifle the hot offense that is Cal. Again, Cal's batting over 300 as a team right now, which is top 15, top 20, I believe, in the country. So, again, they have the bats, but LSU has the pitching to be able to outduel them in that regional. We're going to go out to Stanford, that regional. I've got Stanford beating Mississippi State. Now, you heard me earlier talk about Mississippi State and Cal State Fullerton. They faced each other earlier in the season. Mississippi State won by 2. They're matched up again in the first round here in the Stanford Regional, and I just feel like Mississippi State's going to figure out again how to beat Cal State Fullerton, and therefore Stanford is going to take it over against Mississippi State. But that's going to be a fun series to watch. Let's head out to Stillwater, Oklahoma State. I have them beating the Big Ten champions in Michigan. Now, you've got the Michigan-Kentucky game that's going to take place in the first round right there. And that's going to be one where I feel like Kentucky has a chance, but they've just been way, way too inconsistent for me to say they can beat the Big Ten champion in Michigan right now. So I'm going Michigan over Kentucky, but then I'm going Oklahoma State over Michigan without much of a problem at all. Let's head out to Arkansas. We have them duking out Arizona. Arizona, they have the history, right, of women's college World Series runs, super regionals, and getting it all done. But right now, I just don't know that they have what they need to be able to beat an Arkansas team, which to me right now looks like a top 3 program in the SEC specifically. So Arkansas is going to get it done against Arizona. Here is my first upset, all right? And I'm not saying this because I don't like the team or whatever, because I do like the team. I have a lot of respect for them. But guys, we're going to go to this Louisiana Lafayette Regional. I feel like in my heart of hearts, Ole Miss is going to pull off the upset against Louisiana. Now, this is also the regional with Princeton, Ole Miss, and Baylor, right? So we got Louisiana, Princeton, Ole Miss, Baylor. I think all 4 of those teams could come out of it, right? I really do. However, I think Ole Miss gets it done. I feel like Ole Miss has been battle tested way more than the other 3 teams in that regional. And although Louisiana Lafayette is the host team, I feel like Ole Miss has what it takes to get out of there with the victory. This could be a boneheaded pick. I'm not certain, but we're gonna find out, because I think that's gonna be a very, very fun regional watch, and we'll see if Ole Miss can prove me right. Shout out to Louisiana if and or when they prove me wrong, though. All right. Going to the next one there, we've got Florida over Florida Atlantic. I could have gone Florida over South Alabama, and it might end up being that. I feel I have a lot of respect for the team in the Sun Belt Conference as well, and South Alabama is one of those teams. I just feel like Florida Atlantic is going to figure out how to get there to that finale against Florida, and I don't believe that anybody in that regional has enough to take over what Florida's doing. The only way I feel like that happens is if Florida's youth somehow becomes a detriment to them. But it hasn't all season. It's led to them winning the conference tournament and honestly being, a top 2 SEC program as we speak today. So Florida gets it done in that regional. Keeping it going in the SEC, we have the Knoxville Regional. Tennessee is going to get it done over Miami of Ohio. All right, and why I'm getting loud on that one is because I think Miami of Ohio figures out a way to get past Virginia. Therefore, they're going to have a date with Tennessee. All right, because if you remember Dayton, Ohio is also in this regional. They're a first timer. I don't think they would have what it takes to beat Tennessee. So we're gonna have a Tennessee versus Miami of Ohio finale. Spade for Miami of Ohio. I think she's gonna drop a bomb or two in this regional, but ultimately that Carlin Pickens and Peyton Gottschall, man, they are the best duo in the country from the circle, and I think they're going to stifle pretty much every offense that they face that in on this weekend. So Tennessee gets it done over Miami of Ohio, heading down to Tuscaloosa Regional at Alabama. Alabama gets it done over Southeastern Louisiana. This is an interesting pick. I had to really do a deep dive on this one because although Clemson's coming in loosey goosey, they don't have much to lose. Okay, and they face some tough opponents, obviously in the ACC. But Southeastern Louisiana, they won their conference championship. They are not a slouch at all. I watched them play on TV against LSU as well. They've got a stingy defense, and their offense is also very very feisty. So I think Southeastern Louisiana is going to get to that final, but I don't believe that they can get past Alabama on that front because I feel like Alabama should win the first two games of that regional, and if they do, that means whoever's coming out of losers bracket has to beat them twice, and I don't see that. It's twice in the same day at that, and I don't see that happening. So Alabama makes their way to the super regionals by way of beating Southeastern Louisiana. This is the biggest upset I have on the charts, and I'm going to preface this by saying I said this out loud to a couple of my former players that I keep in great contact with, as well as my brother Didi, who I've had on the show previously, who's actually going to be on the show again here pretty soon. My big upset in the regional, guys. I'm going to get so much flack for this. I know I will. But I think that Liberty is going to pull it off against Georgia. Yes. I think they're going to get it done in the Athens regional. All right. I told you, they've got Charlotte in that regional and Liberty. They're going to have to beat Charlotte first, which they were the AAC champions. Charlotte was. But Liberty, I watched them in person, guys, against LSU out in Baton Rouge this year. It was the last series of the year for LSU, and right before the conference tournament. And their defense is solid. Their pitching staff is solid, and if they can score runs, Georgia better come to play. That's all I got to say. Georgia better come to play, or else my upset pick is going to prevail. I've got Liberty over Georgia coming out of that Athens regional. What are your thoughts? Next one, UCLA over Virginia Tech. Again, Virginia Tech did not lose at all at home, but unfortunately, they're not at home. They're literally on the complete opposite side of the country, out in Los Angeles. And UCLA, they're right where they need to be. Like I said before, they're not getting knocked off out of the regional. I don't see that happening. So UCLA is going to get it done. They're going to advance to the supers. Four more of these guys, and we're done here. So Mizzou in Columbia, I think they get it done over Washington. Now, here's the thing. I think that series goes the distance because if I'm Mizzou, I fear Washington a little bit and what they can do. Again, they beat, I can't remember who they beat early. But anyway, Washington got it done throughout the season in certain parts, right? After losing Kelly Lynch to graduation and to LSU. Thank you again. And, and whatnot. But again, Washington could very well beat Mizzou. Not gonna lie to you, but I think Mizzou figures it out because again, they it doesn't, like I said before, it doesn't matter what corner you push them in. They can kick and scream and they can and scratch and claw and get things done in a multitude of ways. And Mizzou is that team that can do that. So again, they're the one of the lone, to me, one of the lone top seeds right now that can really beat you in a lot of ways. Next one, I've got Duke over, not South Carolina. I've got Duke over the Utah Utes. Here's why. I think Utah beats South Carolina in that regional. Again, South Carolina's been streaky. They can beat you by a lot or a little, or they can lose by a lot or a little. I just don't know where they're going to be right now. But I'm going with Utah over South Carolina because Utah made a nice magical run to the Women's College World Series out in Oklahoma City as a non-ranked opponent last year. So they have some of that pedigree coming back this year. And they're in the Durham Regional with Duke here, but again, ultimately Duke's going to prevail. They're gonna have a chip on their shoulders, in my opinion, being ranked number 10 in the country when I thought maybe they thought too as well. They should have deserved a top 8 seed as well. So we're gonna see what happens in that regional. That's gonna be another fun one to watch. Ultimately, again, Duke comes out of that. Here's another upset for you guys. Now, I'm not just picking these frivolously. I truly feel like this could happen. All right, the Tallahassee regional guys, hosted by Florida State. I think Auburn. I think Auburn gets it done. I really do. I really do. If Auburn can get, who do they have in that regional? That was the who do they have? Auburn's got UCF first. That's right. So Florida State gets by Chattanooga, and then Auburn gets by UCF. Right. Again, it's a double elimination bracket, so there's some loser bracket things that have to happen from there. But I believe if Auburn gets by UCF and then they beat Florida State the first time, I think Auburn gets it done. That's my bottom line. Now, if it comes down to Florida State and Auburn the first time and Florida State beats them and now Auburn has to beat Florida State twice in the same day, I don't think that happens. But if Auburn can beat Florida State the first time and then now Florida State has to beat Auburn twice, I don't think that happens either. So, again, I want to hear your thoughts on that one because that's another one where I'm going, I had to really I wasn't sure. I really wasn't. So again, that's going to be a fun one to watch for. And then the last one is Oklahoma over Oregon in in the Oklahoma regional. There, I don't think anybody in that region has an opportunity to beat Oklahoma. Although Oklahoma is as gettable as they've ever been in the last decade, nobody's beating them right now in that regional. Supers, we'll see, but right now in that regional, I don't think anybody can touch them. So again, I cannot wait though to it might be next episode or this episode after that until we get to the supers. I'm not going to rush the regionals at all, but I'm going to then give you my picks. I'm excited to see kind of which one of these picks kind of held up, which ones were just a big flop or what have you. You can laugh at me if you want, whatever, that's cool. But again, upsets, Auburn over Florida State, Liberty over Georgia. Those are two big ones that I anticipate happening. But again, things got to break the right way for those to happen. All right. So anyway, guys, I'm going to wrap up the show. I have been excited to get this out to you. So I hope that you've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed sharing my thoughts with you and just some of this info because I know that some of you who did not get an opportunity to watch the season as closely as I did this year, you DM'd me. You told me, hey, I want to hear your analysis on this. I want to hear your thoughts. So that's the best I can give you guys. I'm pumped up about the freaking weekend, man. I hope that you got your TV screen on, ready to go, or go out to the games, man. Go support your nearest regional and just enjoy the atmosphere of college softball because it is, again, alive and well, kicking and screaming. We're making our way to OKC. I think I told you guys earlier in the season, I'm taking my travel softball team out to Oklahoma City to see the Women's College World Series finale with the final two teams in that championship series. So we're making our way. The next couple of weeks is going to be wild. We're getting done. So with that being said, I'm going to give you guys my thought you should know moment. And this is inspired by the great Allie Newland. She better be a first ballot Golden Glover this year. Allie Newland, left fielder from the LSU Tigers. LSU beat Tennessee this year in the SEC tournament. Tennessee was ranked number 1 at the time, obviously in the tournament. And one thing that Allie Newland mentioned, or that she kind of alluded to at the end of her post game presser, is that she wants the team to be where their feet are, right? And so that's my encouragement to you today, is that you be where your feet are. Because sometimes I know for us that when we are able to live in the moment and we're able to just be right here, right now, that's one of the most beautiful places to be. And on the contrary, when we're looking too far ahead, this moment right here can escape us pretty fast, right? And so cherish the moments that you have with the people that you're cherishing, that you're living them with, because in the blink of an eye, it can be gone. And so be where your feet are, guys, and enjoy the time that you're spending with those folks. Love on them and love on each other, and make sure that you continue to surround yourself with people who love you, who cherish you, who value you, and who are going to add value to your life as well. So with that being said, I'm going to sign this show off like we always do. Please let everything you do be done in love, because at the end of the day, that is truly what makes the world go round. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.